Hi there, welcome to episode 181 of the WaveBack Music Podcast. My name is Chris.
And I'm Matt.
And we're here to listen to the most interesting video game music there is. It was Matt's pick this month, and he chose a game that I have never heard of before. It's a game about blacksmiths, crafting, and pixel art. Oh, and apparently some really good music. Get your hammers and anvils at the ready, because tonight we listen to the music of While the Iron's Hot. Well, hi there, Matt.
Hi there, Chris.
How the heck are you?
I'm all right. Can't really complain. You?
I am, let's see, the word that keeps flowing through my head right now is wretched.
Ah.
Yes, I have caught the winter cold, and I am going to fake it till I make it tonight. I'm going to be nice and enthusiastic for the viewers at home. The listeners at home. Viewers? I don't know.
Sure.
Watch this audio podcast. It's a great plan. We're off to a great start. I'm thrilled. No, this is fun. I always love it when you bring games that I've never heard of to the table before, because it means that I get to listen to a bunch of music I've never heard, and I still have not. We went through quite a fun adventure getting this episode together, which I don't know. You want to talk about that now? You want to talk about that after we go through the history?
We could wait till after the history.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get right down to business. Matt.
Yes, sir.
Hit us with some history.
Certainly. While the Iron's Hot was released on modern platforms in December of 2023 and was developed by Bontemp Games, it tells the story of a blacksmith looking to become a master of his craft. It's a game all about creating stuff out of other stuff, primarily metals, as you work your way towards becoming a master smith.
I say modern platforms because I didn't want to list all of the platforms this is for.
Yes.
It's all your Xboxes, all your PlayStations. Really, it's the Xbox platforms that like, who really wants to say Xbox Series S and Series X and One S and one? That's anyway.
Yeah.
Blanket apologies for pronunciation here. As always, if you're new to this show, Matt and I are just terrible at figuring out how to properly say people's names. I once I can't remember. Magnus, I think, was his first name. His last name was Paulson, the guy who did the music for VVVVVV.
Right.
It's spelled phonetically. I still messed it up on the show. And I think about it every time I listen to that soundtrack. I think, man, I made a complete ass of myself by mispronouncing that guy's name. And he was very gracious about it. He listened to the episode on his own and corrected me on Twitter. And I was like, man, what did I do?
I'm an ass.
Anyway, this game's soundtrack was composed by Brazilian artist Alan Monteiro, who also, according to the developer, was responsible for all the game's sound effects, too. I had a brief correspondence with the developer about doing this episode, and Monteiro was kind enough to share a few words about his experience. Quote, I started learning music at the age of 9 in 2004, mainly because I was fascinated by 90s RPGs game music, like music from Final Fantasy and Grandia, and in 2009, I started composing music for games, participating in amateur game development communities. I've spent years composing music mainly for small RPGs until 2015, when I've started composing music for games professionally, and a lot of years and games later, here we are. So that kind of lends to the story of how we came to be doing this episode.
And it's really interesting, right? I feel like over the years of my time here, there's been not a lot of crazy stuff that's happened to or with the show. But when something like, that happens, it's always like, it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. So Matt brought this game to the table a couple months ago, actually, said that he wanted to do this episode. And when it came time to actually put the episode together, we needed to find the soundtrack. And none of my usual outlets had it. There wasn't even so much as a YouTube playlist that I could pull from. Like, there was just no way for me to get this music. So I told Matt, like, you're going to need to pick a backup game, because if we can't find the music, we can't very well do the episode. But just, me being me, and a lot of my job involves reaching out to different people and developers and things like that for various sundry situations. I decided to figure out who made the game and just reach out to them directly and ask if there was a way to get the soundtrack. And they said, well, as long as your episode isn't going out before December 6th, we can just give you a code for the music. and they would love to have us talk about the game on the show, which I thought was really really kind of them. And it just so happened that the reason it couldn't be before the 6th is because the 6th, which is as we're recording this show right now, that would be tomorrow.
Mhm.
December 6th is when this game's soundtrack is officially being released on Steam for the game's first anniversary, which is quite coincidental timing
It's
for us putting this together.
it's kind of odd, right? Because I wanted to do this game, I don't know, like 3 months ago almost
Yeah,
at this point, just before the
yeah,
spooky special stuff.
right.
And we wouldn't have been able to even if we wanted to back then. So you're right. It's kind of kismet, I suppose.
Yeah. So then there was lots of emailing back and forth as I tried to figure out how to use Steam because I'm a console guy through and through. I never touch Steam. I have a Steam account, but
Same.
I never use it. So I'm like, I don't know. All right, I figured I got the code downloaded. Where's the music? How do I find it? And it was very fun corresponding back to them. They're very very kind to get this quote from the composer to give us the music to use on the show. It was really fun going back and forth with them, and I'm really excited about this. I have been purposely kind of avoiding learning anything about the game outside of this basic history, just because I really want to go into this as blind as possible. You've played this obviously, which is why you picked it.
Yes, I have.
Exactly what kind of game is this?
So, I guess its theme is crafting. But there's a pretty decent exploration portion to it too. Um, like any crafting game, you start with your base layer, rudimentary items to craft, and as you go, you have like the rusty pickaxe, and then the next, is the stone pickaxe, and it's stronger than that, but it's still not strong enough to mine, the next whatever, and you build and you build and you build until at some point you're infusing platinum with, fancy dragon egg rocks and stuff like that. So it's kind of one of those games. It's a lot of fun. I really I have a leaning towards a lot of the newer pixel art games because there's a lot of cool art direction in some of them. You get away from the idea of the 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit sprite, and people have really made some cool and interesting things. This is more in league with like an 8 or well, more like a 16-bit sprite game, but it's got quite a bit of depth to it when it comes to the animation. The quote that we had about oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't the quote, but the note up front about not only the music's composer doing the music, but the sound effects too. I actually really enjoyed the sound effects, which for some people might be like a non-starter, but I'm one of those people that I'm like, when the sound effects are really fun and cool, I totally get it.
Well,
Um,
sound effects add a whole lot to games. Uh, I remember in particular when Majora's Mask came out, right? And there was a lot about that game I didn't like, but what made me feel immediately comfortable was that it had the same sound effects as Ocarina of Time,
mm,
so it felt familiar to me. Yeah,
yeah.
sound effects are very, very important to making a game feel right.
Yeah, and especially in the case of your story, Majora's Mask, which I think it's a very divisive game. I feel that having that familiarity kind of may allow you to forgive some of its other shortcomings or something, or at the very least bring you in on a level of comfort that is what brings you to the games to begin with. So absolutely. Um, so I was telling Chris prior to recording that this soundtrack is massive. Um, it has 62 tracks. And if you're new to the show, we pick 10, not counting the intro and the outro, and we talk about those. So it was really, really, really hard to kind of whittle down 62 songs to effectively 12. Um, so when I was talking to Chris about it, I was like, when I wanted to do the episode originally, whatever, back in September, I had just beaten the game, so it was very fresh in my head, and I knew exactly what songs were where and what was happening. Now, all these months removed, that I'm pretty foggy. So I'm gonna do my best to kind of talk us through it. But I can't promise you anything. So um the way we're gonna listen to the soundtrack, excluding the intro, is pretty much in chronological order. And the game's pretty linear. There's a little backtracking as you explore, like I guess, man, we'll talk about the exploration as we get to certain songs. But I mean, as you said, Chris, you have no personal history with the game. This is the first time you're really even encountering it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've now seen its box art and approximately 0.4 seconds of a trailer and like maybe a screenshot, because I've been really intentionally trying to go in
Yeah.
as blind as possible, just because I want to go in with I just want to hear the music completely on its own without any context and
Hmm.
just see where it goes, because it's not something I get to do very often on this show. Usually I know the games beforehand, so it's just one of those fun little exercises for me. So
Oh no, and that's fantastic. I just wanted to make sure that I talked about the personal history. We've already, established that I've played and beaten this game. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't skipping over you, sir.
oh, thank you.
So
Well,
with
let's
that
get to
being said,
work.
yeah, that being said, let's just dive right in,
let's
right?
let's strike while the iron's hot, Matt.
Hey, he said the thing.
That's
All
the
right,
name of the game.
that's it. Pack it up. We've done it. So we're gonna start at the beginning. The first song we're gonna listen to is entitled "While the Iron's Hot." It is the theme song to the game when it's the title screen. You start it up. Um, and like I always say, when the title screen music is pretty much your first introduction to the game, it sets the tone, and I think this track does exactly that. So, without further ado, here is the theme to "While the Iron's Hot." That was the title music to "While the Iron's Hot," entitled "While the Iron's Hot." Yeah, like I said, that's your first introduction to what the game is, and even in the title music too, you get this. I do, I get this kind of sense of a more chill, laid back experience, which is what this game is. And as we get deeper in, I'll talk about areas where there's quote unquote danger and stuff like that. There's no real fighting that I remember. Oftentimes like things like Stardew Valley, you'll have like the gardening simulator, the farming simulator, and then there's like a mine of some sort, and you'll have to fight enemies to progress down, et cetera, et cetera. This game didn't really have that, and that was kind of cool actually. Because sometimes I just want to like look at recipes and think, okay, I need 4 pieces of steel, I need 4 pieces of glass. Okay, to get that. I dig that sort of stuff. It's like a nice way to ironically turn my brain off because I'll be playing, uh, Apex Legends or, Modern Warfare, and it's very go, 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 go. And then you switch it up, and now you're just like, I want to plant some tulips.
Well, I mean, like it's a it did the wonderful thing where you have a video game in video games more than anything is where I hear this, but it's a game where mining is involved and the percussion is mining sounds.
Yep.
It's just it's a trope that works every time. I've never heard it and been like, oh well, that's dumb. It worked great in here. It was also kind of subtle in here. It wasn't really overbearing. Like I think about that Mining Melancholy from Donkey Kong Country 2, which is a phenomenal song. Adore that song. But you know me and David Wise. Love pretty much everything that guy writes. But the mining percussion in that is extremely overbearing. Like it's really the central focus of the song.
Mhm.
This just kind of has that, I want to say harpsichordish sound almost. I'm not really sure what that instrument is, but it's just very, for lack of a better term, Renaissance fair, but in a really good way. Combined with this, just really pretty sounds. It was a very nicely composed song. I liked it.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that the percussions were, hammers striking anvils or metal or, something, some kind of forging. Because that again, it's a game about mining. The thing's called While the Iron's Hot. Like, okay. But absolutely to your point, it isn't overbearing. It actually works really, really well in the cut, and that's super cool. So yeah. That being said, I guess we can move forward here. The next track we're gonna listen to is a track entitled "The Journey Begins," and if I remember correctly, this
This is where
is
the journey begins.
Chris. You're just getting ahead of me here now. This
uh,
is this is like immediately after the title screen. It's pretty much I think the first thing you encounter for this game. The story is about a nameless character who, of course, you name and becomes you, and how you figured out that the I don't know if the world of was it Iliad is without a blacksmith, and you're like, I'm a blacksmith. You need a blacksmith. Let's make this happen, right? And you will board a ship, and then there's a storm, and then you get shipwrecked, and you wash up on the shore. So this is like you in town, kind of going to do this thing, and then this is where the journey begins. Aha.
uh-huh.
um, and without further ado, it's the journey begins from While the Iron's Hot. That was The Journey Begins off of While the Iron's Hot. Um, yeah, so basically you walk into this coastal town. It's got a dock, or it's a 2D game, so get that idea there. You can hear it in the music, the kind of squeeze boxy sea shanty ish, vibe. And you find some old salty dog who's willing to take you across whatever it is, the ocean, to the place that doesn't have the the blacksmith to set your life up as it were. Um, yeah. So how'd that grab you, Chris?
I loved this. I loved this so much. It was funny you said squeeze box because honestly, I was listening to that particular instrument. I could have sworn it was a melodica because I felt like I could hear like
Mm,
the keys being pressed like almost ever so slightly out of perfect rhythm because of the breath going through the melodica itself to make the next notes. That's what I thought it was. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is a squeeze box. I don't know for sure, but um, it took me a second, and it was really funny. Like as we're listening to this, I'm like, boy, this really reminds me. This reminds me very specifically of Chrono Cross. This reminds me of like
mm,
coming to an oceanside town in an RPG. Oh, right.
yep.
This guy said he wrote music for RPGs and he was influenced by old Final Fantasy and Grandia. That totally tracks. Oh my goodness, this was such a marvelous piece of music. Like the first part of it was very kind of minor notes, sea shanty, and then when that like flute sound came in and it just got really pretty, I just stopped doing what I was doing and sat back and listened to the rest of the song and nothing else. It was I liked this one quite a bit.
That's awesome. To be fair, you might be right. It might be a melodica for all I could tell. I kind of tried to give it a quote unquote peek again. I hear exactly what you're saying.
Hmm.
It there's something there, whether it's the air going out of the box for the valves, or it's the melodica like you said. Either way, I think it's a beautiful little piece of music. I hate that it's so short. Um but you could always just start the game and sit in the town and do nothing for 2-3 hours.
Hey, I've got a music programs. I'll just put this in here and loop it for a while. Listen to it
Also,
that way.
you gotta love nonlinear editing, right?
Love it.
Without it, we wouldn't have a podcast.
True.
Um, so we'll keep this ship a rolling. Um,
Sounds dangerous.
yeah, that's how this works, right? The ship rolls. Anyway, the next track we're gonna listen to is Porgy's Emporium. Yeah, try saying that 10 times fast. Um, this is some kind of shop. I can't quite remember. It's probably like one of the first shops in Ewing. So effectively, like you wash up on shore, and this another old salty, human being rescues you, and it turns out that he was the previous, um,
Blacksmith?
yeah.
Ah.
But then there's this whole, um, what's the word? Like there's this whole storyline that has to do with his master apprentice. And it gets revealed through the game because you're kind of following that story arc a little bit. This guy, the former apprentice, now master, is a little hesitant to take you on because he doesn't know, where you sit, like where, because the premise effectively is there's a power source that um can be used for good or evil, and the previous his the salt dog's master, I think, was corrupted by it, if I'm not mistaken. So he kind of kept this all quiet, and now someone shows up saying they're going to be the next blacksmith, so he's real concerned. So he shows you things very slowly. It's great for the pacing of the game, right? Like to scale you up, to scale you up, to scale you up. So you get a little tutorial, you know what I mean? And like you start getting the go for missions, go for this, go for that, and et cetera, et cetera. So, Porgy's Emporium, like I said, it's got to be someone's shop because it sounds like shop music, but like really good shop music. So, without further ado, Porgy's Emporium, While the Iron's Hot. That was Porgy's Emporium from While the Iron's Hot. And before I ask you, Chris, how that made you feel, I will say that I did a quick dive and I remember exactly what part this is. For one of your first gopher missions, after you start to craft things, you come across like a little cave. And when you go exploring, there is a human sized anthropomorphic mouse or a rat that's named Porgy. And he needs knitting needles because he knits the world's best sweaters. So you need to get him knitting needles because you need to get the sweater because much, much, much like almost end game, the sweater comes into play for another character of sort. Yeah, another character that will give you something that helps you with the end game, et cetera, et cetera. But Porgy pops up every now and again, and he's again, like I said, I love the art direction for this game so much. Um, he just his sprite is, in my opinion, worth the price of admission. So that being said, how did that make you feel, Chris?
Uh, Made me feel like buying sweaters.
Big cable knit, coastal sweaters.
Yeah, this is you were 100% right about this being shop music. It kind of, I know it's like very different, but I think there's a lot of similar instruments between this and the Master Librarian shop in Symphony of the Night.
Okay, yeah.
It just kind of reminded me instrumentally of that. Yeah, this is just classic shop music, not like Ocarina of Time shop music where it's or like the Wii shop music where it's all just like super boppy. This is just really just kind of going into a CD shop at a beachfront town in an RPG kind of shop music, and it's marvelous. I loved it. I was smiling the whole dang time.
Yeah, this soundtrack is very well put together to evoke that. There's not a ton of like what's the word? Out of character tracks. There's a one or two that like denote heavy moments in the game. But for the most part, it's a very chill game. It's got what I think is a fantastically parallel soundtrack. I think the soundtrack absolutely matches what's doing. Um, and there's also a lot of callbacks to melodies from other songs in the game. I don't know that we're really gonna get to showcase that for the audience, but I'm telling you, if you're digging any of this, you should really, really, really go find this soundtrack and just let it play straight through. I promise you it will not be a bad time.
Available now on Steam.
Yeah, right? When you listen to this, it will be available on Steam. Woo! All right. So the next track we're going to listen to is a track called The Bog Trot. Off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with what this is. I guarantee you, while we listen to it, I'll find it and I'll have a story. So let's let that do its thing. This is the Bog Trot from While the Iron's Hot.
Oh, I could have listened to that one for a whole lot longer.
Right? The
Like
bog
like a whole
trot.
lot longer. I'm sitting here like grooving away, and then I hear it fading out. Like, whoa, no,
Hey,
excuse
get
me,
back here.
sir, get back here.
You
You
are
need to
not
loop
done.
at least 2 more times. Oh, that was wonderful. That was great.
That
That
was
was
the
Go
bog
ahead.
trot.
Yeah, it was the bog trot, and I'm bog trotting all over the place here. I don't even know what that means. No, I mean this in the as the highest compliment these words can mean. It reminded me of something off the West of Loathing soundtrack, but like
Okay.
crossed with something from. I keep landing on Chrono Cross for some reason. I think there's something about the very specific about the instrument fidelity that's reminding me of Chrono Cross or just PS1 era RPGs. Um, but oh yeah, it had this kind of like mysterious, almost I want to say almost Western vibe, just because of the like reverb on that guitar sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good, really good.
Okay, so I actually, while you were talking, it took me a while, but I figured out what part of the game it's from. So, at some point early on, once you kind of satiate the needs of the first town and the gentleman who has agreed to allow you to apprentice under him. Best part about him, by the way, is he has one arm.
Hmm.
And I love the sprite because the sprite's got one arm and it's part of the story and it's part of his backstory and stuff. Um, but that being said, uh, you get a caravan and an ox. And the ox is like the best part of the game, right? Again, beautiful sprites. This ox follows you around. Like when you go into towns, he walks in with you. And like he's slower than you. So like you'll be running around the town and eventually like you're talking to someone and he just catches up to you and you're like, "Oh yeah, right. And later on, like when you do things for people, certain people will give you like hats and then you can put them on your ox. So now your ox can walk around with like a Scottish beret type hat or a chef's hat. It's friggin' hysterical. It's stupid, it's funny, I love it. Now when you have this caravan, that's when you enter the overworld and think like Final Fantasy, the very first couple of Final Fantasies. You're moving around the map and you get to a certain area which is this swamp, this bog area. And the cool thing about it is the game is a puzzler too. There's quite a few puzzles. Uh it's not heavy-handed. The puzzles aren't easy or hard. They're like, in my opinion, perfectly center of the road. Um, because again, it's a game about crafting, but there's a little adventure, there's a little puzzling. This part is a puzzle in the overworld because you have to remember the path you're traversing because one wrong step, you sink and it starts you all the way back at the beginning again.
Hmm.
So you have to remember this path so that you can get to the other side of the bog to continue on your quests and your gopher quests and et cetera, et cetera. So this air of mystery that you were talking about, right? Um, it exists there, I think, because the bog is a mystery. There's no indication what block will knock you out and send you back to the beginning again. So it's just this long trial by error thing. And even when you pass it, if you have to go back there, which I've done, you still have to traverse it in such a way. They don't unlock it for you, and which kind of cracks me up and makes me mad at the same time, but I digress. So, yeah, a piece of music that I think accompanies its level very, very well. Um, yeah, and we'll just keep it going. This next song's name just cracks me up. It's called Toot Toot Mischief. Um, Again, not quite sure where it is. Hopefully, it will pop for me, and then we can talk about it. So, uh, while I do that, you do this. This is Toot Toot Mischief off of While the Iron's Hot. That was Toot Toot Mischief off the soundtrack for While the Iron's Hot. So that comes. Actually, you know what? Chris, you tell me what you think of that first, and then I'll tell you where it's from.
Again, rather enjoyed it. It was giving me, oddly enough, it was giving me Secret of Monkey Island vibes, which, you know,
Ah,
not a bad thing in any way, shape, or
no.
form. That one had a little, seemed like it had kind of a twinge of mystery to it, like the little plucking strings that were going on there just kind of made me feel like something. There's either some sort of mystery or mischief going on.
And not because it's in the name, right?
Not because it's in the name. Um, I am lamenting the lack of toots. Either but either like train toots or farting. I don't, really anyone would do. You put toot toot in there, kind of expecting some toots. Just saying. Outside of that, though, no, fantastic piece of music. Really enjoyed it.
So, this comes from a part of the game that's effectively a haunted house.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Which pretty much, hits the nail on the head or the iron while it's hot. Um, you have to this is part of the puzzling aspect of it. You have to figure out this kind of visual riddle to unlock something, and then at the same time you meet the ghost who I'm trying to figure out if his name is actually Toot Toot. I don't think it is though. But this game does have funny names. No, unfortunately there is no ghost named Toot Toot. Um, but that was actually one of my favorite parts of the game. I kind of it's a short puzzle, but I intentionally took my time with it because the music really caught me first, and I was like, "This is some really fun of music." And I thought that I think that was the first time I was like, "This might be a good candidate for the show." And as we got deeper into the game, as I got deeper into the game, I said, "No, this is definitely a great candidate for the show." Um, Yeah, one of the things I want to bring up is I think maybe we're about halfway through the episode, and like I said, these tracks are short, so this is probably going to breeze by for most of our listeners, even for us too. But uh, you know, at 62 tracks, it's such a beautiful, beautiful soundtrack. And like I said, you'll pick up things like um melody lines from other parts. You'll get songs that are a little more stripped down because it's like nighttime as opposed to day. I think I included one of those tracks, and when we get to it, we'll talk about. Yeah, I see it there. We'll talk about it in a moment. But one of the things that I really noticed with this is this entire soundtrack has nothing but hand percussion.
Ooh,
So
I love hand percussion.
yeah, you got the tambourines. There's bongos. And I don't think really anything beyond that. So you don't really get it's not a very percussion heavy uh um soundtrack despite it being about uh a blacksmith. So like that opening is really probably the hardest percussion on the soundtrack if I'm not mistaken. So something just an interesting observation.
Hmm, that is an interesting observation.
Thank you. I had it myself. The next song we're going to talk about is the song called The Miner's Market. Now, again, you have a lot of overworld travel, a lot of gopher missions, leveling up, so to speak, leveling up. Um, and there's all kinds of things like your caravan at some point will be able to float on water. So now you can go to other continents or islands or whatever. And then after that, you'll notice that there's areas you can't access. But then you put on like some kind of battering ram. Now you can knock down these crags that were in the way. You get the idea. So, and then you have a camp too. So while you're with the caravan, you can camp in the middle of wherever, and you set up your own forge, which is not as big as your forge at your hometown, but you could still do stuff. You can still accomplish missions and things like that. And each town you go into has like a job board. So you're going to collect blueprints, which will unlock other things to make. So someone will ask you for something, and you're like, I don't even know what that is. But if you collect the blueprints, then you go, oh, now I know how to make it. And one of the great things about the game, I think, is let's say you get the blueprint for steel armor. I'm just making something up, right? Steel armor. Um, well, whatever comes next, let's say it's iron, you don't need the blueprint. You can look at the steel blueprint, create the pieces in iron, and then put them in the configuration of the armor, and now you've suddenly unlocked the iron armor blueprint. So you can do that with a lot of stuff, which I think is really, really cool. But then, like, as the game progresses, you make bigger and stranger and weirder things that you will need to unlock these blueprints for. So just again, just a fun and interesting dive for a video game. So um the miners market, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a town full of miners, and you'll probably hear that in the music. So without further ado, here is the miners market from While the Iron's Hot.
And the very next song was a percussion heavy snare drums and everything song.
Yeah, so that's usually how my life goes. I'm so confident in what I'm saying that you're like, yeah, I believe him. And then something happens and they're just like, this kid's an idiot. I don't know what's going on.
It didn't even strike me until like a minute or so into the song when the snare drums hit. I'm like, man, this song is just brimming with percussion.
Yeah.
Like almost like it's specifically out to make you mad.
Or make me look stupid. Either way, mission accomplished. Okay, so for the most part, this soundtrack, there's 62 tracks on this record. I mean,
Right.
there's at least maybe 2 or 3 that have some, non-hand percussions. This, of course, being one of them.
And magnificently effective too.
Yes.
This there was a game that it reminded me of right off the bat, and now it's left my brain. This is definitely it feels like it's a very lively market, but it almost has like this kind of sense of foreboding underneath it, like it's a I don't know, like little fish in a big lake kind of a feeling, like I don't know, like almost you're in over your head, but it sounds like there's just a lot going on in this miners market is what this song elicited to me. I rather enjoyed it. I love percussion in general, and I thought this all really came together nicely. This is again an excellent use of the whole construction hammering anvil sound as a percussion instrument. This is another excellent use of that, but also like when the snares came in, it just really felt to a regal to a degree, and really just kind of made the whole thing seem very, very lively and also ever so slightly intimidating. I like this one a lot.
So you're fairly accurate in your thought process. The only thing is it's not necessarily the most lively place. So all these markets have maybe like these towns effectively have 6, 8, maybe 10 buildings, and then you'll see about 6, 8, 10 residents. So if you consider that lively, then it's lively. But This town exists at the base of a very large mountain range that has an elevator that goes up. You know, it ascends the entire mountain range, which will take you to kind of the final, area. You get your desert area, your swamp area, your ice area. So it's like, kind of the last area of the game, so to speak. But of course, this is early on in the game, and you're just not strong enough. You have to prove yourself, and in order to prove yourself, you have to uh, go to other towns and get their medallions. And in order to get their medallions, you have to prove yourself by doing these kind of ludicrous tasks that no one's willing to take on, or there are these traditional tasks that people haven't done in decades because no one really cares anymore, or whatever the case may be. Or, for the most part, there was never a blacksmith. There hasn't been a blacksmith 10, 20, 30, whatever years. So now that you show up, they're like, "Oh, you're the blacksmith. You can do the task and we'll give you the medallion." So, there's a big gopher mission there too. So, um, there is a sense of regalness because I believe it's attached to kind of I think by mandate of the military or something, you're not allowed up there. You can't ascend in the elevator and that sort of stuff. But because it sits at the base of the mountain, yes, it's the miners' town because all the miners go and they get in the elevator, they ascend and they go mining, etc. So yeah, that's a song that'll make you feel stupid, Matt. Anyway, nah, it's
It
all
did
good.
feel personal.
It did, didn't it? Like, it's as if I didn't make this playlist. It's as if someone else made it.
Love
Spoiler
it.
alert, I made the playlist. Anyway, moving right along. The next track is called Snooping in the Mines. I think I know what this is, but I'm going to wait because apparently when I open up my mouth too early, I get made the fool. So, this is Snooping in the Mines from While the Iron's Hot. That was Snooping in the Mines off of While the Iron Was Hot. Um, I was trying to see if this was tied to a portion where you go into a set of caves, again, a puzzler, and there's these big spider webs, and then these giant, I mean, like human sized anthropomorphic giant bats that attack you. So you have to like figure out how to traverse and use the spider webs to catch the bats and, kind of find your way around. But I don't think that's the part. So I'm not quite sure which portion of the game is, because there's a handful of times that you go into random mines. There's uh, one portion where, to traverse to the next kind of area, you have to pass through a mountain range, and you do that with this cave system. It could be that. I can't quite remember, but at any rate, what'd you think, Chris?
Oh, I like that one a lot. Um, let's see. It was very mischievous. It had that very sneaking around in something kind of a like. This was snooping music, is what this was. Like it was. There's just really no better way to explain it. This was snooping music. This soundtrack is impressing the heck out of me thus far. Really making me want to add this to my wish list and give it a go. In fact, I'm going to go to Nintendo.com right now and add it to my wish list for the Switch.
Yeah,
See what
it's
happens.
it's a really fun game. Like I said, it's very lighthearted. I think you could pick it up, put it down, quite often, and not really lose your place. Some games you're like, oh, what was I doing? Oh, I don't remember the controls, or how do I do that, or and that could be a real pain. Um, I don't think this is one of those games though. And I had a feeling that the soundtrack might hook you, so I'm really happy to see that that's what's happening here. So, the next track we're going to listen to is called "The Desert of Ilian." I think I said I called the place Iliad, so it's Elian, Ellian. Um, I don't know if you consider that the planet, if you consider that the content, the area, the region, but Ilian's got a desert because it does. And so in your journeys, you end up in this desert, with your gopher mission. And this is the music, if I'm not mistaken, that plays in the overworld as you're traversing the desert to, do whatever it is you need to do. So, diving right in, this is the Desert of Ilian off of While the Iron's Hot. Enjoy. So that was the Deserts of Ilian from While the Iron's Hot. And how'd that grab you, Chris?
Oh, I cannot place what this song reminds me of. But holy cow, this the RPG elements,
Yeah.
like the RPG influences are just coming through so hard in this soundtrack. Like this could absolutely be the soundtrack to an RPG from like the PlayStation or even Dreamcast era. I wouldn't even bat an eye. It's great. It's desert, so you've got the deserty instruments going on in the background there, and that really great groove. Like the percussion was really nice. Really kept the song moving. Really liked it. Really liked it.
Yeah, so there is sort of these reminiscent, if not, specific to the region, Middle Eastern music, instruments, and I think the tambula is the drum they use, if I remember correctly, which again is a hand percussion, and it's played several different ways. You can strike with your fingertip, the flat of your finger, the flat of your palm. You can kind of strike it the way you would a bass string when you pluck, when you play like funk pluck and stuff like that. It's very interesting. Um, yeah, one of the reasons why I dig this song so much is because it has a lot of that Middle Eastern influence, um, and it's really great to kind of see that shine through. And yeah, of course, when you get to the actual town, it kind of looks like a desert town. People have scarves and um, head wraps and stuff like that. It's very, very cool.
It's a
Um,
Chrono Cross song. That's what this is reminding me of. This has such a
yeah.
similar cadence. It's a very different kind of song, but I finally pieced together what it was. I'm like going through it in my head, and it's the song's cadence that's
hmm
reminding me of the song. I want to say it's called Lizard Dance.
Yeah, you could say
Uh,
that. I've been
Yep,
wrong.
Dances with Lizards, or Lizard Dance, by Yasunori Mitsuda from Chrono Cross. That is what the cadence of this song remind me so much of, and it's the percussion. There's
hmm
a really similar kind of vibe to the percussion that's going on in this song and this song. Great song. I'm so glad I pulled that. It was driving me nuts. It's like this one's really giving me very specific vibes, and yeah, that's it. Lizard Dance, or Dances with Lizards from Chrono Cross. Man, I love the soundtrack to Chrono Cross. I do not like that game.
hmm
It's like the biggest disparity between how much I like a game and how much I love its soundtrack that I've ever encountered in my life. Chrono Cross is just, man, I want to love that game, and I just don't.
It bees like that sometimes, yo.
Sometimes it do.
All right. Moving right along. This next song is called Bottles and Brews, and part of your desert mission is, or I should say, this leg of the story and what they contribute to the overarching story is the ability to brew alchemical potions and etc., which of course you use in the later stages of crafting, right? Um, and there's this really cool sequence on it. Actually, their trial is you have to rebuild these really big Breaking Bad size uh beakers and Bunsen's and stuff like that to help brew these alchemical compounds and stuff. I won't spoil it, but something really cool happens, and it gives the story a nice twist. Um, because your character is such a nice guy, and I think there's even like side comments. Characters make side comments on like how helpful and nice you are, and how obnoxious it is. So there's like this nice twist that happens kind of at this point in the game. So, um, but this song off the top of my head, I don't quite remember where it is. Again, maybe I'll figure it out while we're listening to it. In the meantime, you're gonna listen to Bottles and Brews off of the While the Iron's Hot soundtrack. Enjoy. That was Bottles and Brews from While the Iron Was Hot. And that's the music that plays when you go to the town of Arcana, which is the town in the desert. And I absolutely love that song.
Yeah, that was another winner. So similar overall in style to the Desert of Ilian.
hmm
There, like you can tell it's in a similar spot in the game. But that's it. You got no complaints out of me.
And that's what I was talking about before, where we don't, you and I don't get the opportunity to hear the lifting of those melodic lines from other places. But, you know, to your point, it's the desert portion of the game. So everything's kind of got that same either um, instrumentation or there's lifted melody lines and things like that. One of the things I forgot to mention when we were talking about the miners market is I believe there is another track. I'm going to open up the full track, the full OST real quick to see something. There is um, there's a set of tracks. The Miner's Nightlife. Okay. So um, I don't quite remember where the Miners Nightlife ends up, but it is the Miners Market. It just ends up being that it's the Miners Market at night. So all those great percussions we were talking about aren't there. So it's as if it's the Miners Market, but all the work is done. So all the
Hmm.
percussions are not there. You know what I'm trying
Oh,
to say?
yeah,
It's
that's pretty cool.
yeah, there's a lot of little great through lines in this soundtrack. It again, I 62 tracks. It's really great start to finish. It really does paint a really beautiful picture of kind of this whole game. And if you've been playing games for quite a while like Chris has, he's able to discern kind of what's happening to a very scary degree of accuracy. So yeah, I can't recommend it more. However, my least favorite part of the evening, it's the final track that Chris and I will be listening to. As always, we will ship you off with a track of your own, of your very own. Um, this song is called "The Dreadful Path," and if I'm not mistaken, this is Endgame, where you kind of go up against. I won't say you go up against the big bad because there's not in it's kind of a misnomer, but you have a very, very big decision to make. This game actually has different endings. There's the quote unquote good ending, there's the quote unquote bad ending. And I might be mistaken, but I feel like there's a middle of the road ending. But now that I think about it, no, there's only two endings. You get two choices, and, that's it. So I'm pretty sure this track is playing roughly at that time where you're either encountering the two choices or you have to make the two choices or you're getting ready to enter the venue where you will eventually make one of two choices. So it's aptly named A Dreadful Path, and it comes off the wonderful game While the Iron is Hot. So enjoy. That was A Dreadful Path from While the Iron's Hot. Chris, I know you're chomping, so go for it.
I'm just wanted there to be more of it. That's all.
I agree.
It had some very Last Boss vibes to it,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Again, reminding me very much of classic RPGs in the best of all possible ways. I rather enjoyed it. I apologize. My health is failing me. I'm trying my best to keep it together, but yeah, no, really liked the song. Really liked it. Sorry, I don't have more to say about it.
No, I my voice is starting to go too. You may or may not have heard that, but yeah, to your point, right? We got the quote early on from the developers that um, I don't want to get his name wrong. I apologize.
Alan Montero.
Thank you. We got the quote early on that Alan was a big fan of the JRPGs. I am too. I'm a big fan of the old games, and apparently those soundtracks really made an impression on him because it's really hitting here, especially in the overworld musics and the town musics and stuff like that, and of which there's a lot because you do a lot of backtracking. You end up going to one town and doing the gopher missions, then you have to collect resources and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of traversing the world, there's a lot of traversing the town itself, and sometimes you can get music that you just fades into the background, and this soundtrack is anything just not that song. It's anything but that soundtrack that it should be fading into the background. Such a beautiful soundtrack. I'm really happy. This kind of all happened the way it did because, like we said early on, if we really tried to do it when we were originally going to do it, we weren't going to be able to. The soundtrack just wasn't available. And then the fact that we were able to, I say we, but really Chris, on behalf of the show, was able to get in touch with the developers like that and kind of get a cool little quote and, really get to talk about the game now. And with the soundtrack and stuff, it's just fantastic. So I don't know. I don't find that when things line up like this, I feel the way I do right now. So I feel like this is a very, very cool moment. Like we had that really cool moment, sometime back when you got Snake Rattle and Roll, right?
Oh yeah, that was really cool. I was also utterly thrilled when I got the I think it was for one of our awards shows when the composer
Yes.
of Pong Quest gave me the soundtrack, which I freaking love that soundtrack. I still listen to that regularly. That game was so much better than it got. That game really did not get what it deserved in the world.
But see, it's these little things like that that really like. I mean, I love doing this show, but when we get these little moments of Kismet, I'm like, yeah, that's freaking cool. We did that, So
Yeah.
thank you to the developers at Bontemp Games, Alan, for making a wonderful soundtrack. Really appreciate you guys for, being really cool with us and giving us that kind of on our side early access. For you guys, it's already out. You should get out there and get While the Iron's Hot, man.
Hey, see what you did there.
Hey, yeah,
Nailed it.
yep, print it.
Well, I guess with that, we should wrap things up.
I think it's a good place to do so.
All right. We here at the WaveBack podcast are incredibly grateful to everyone who listens, and we love communicating with you when we can. We have a couple of ways you can do that. There's the Geekade Discord channel, in which we have a WaveBack chat, where we frequently discuss all manner of stuff related to video game music and whatever our next episodes are going to be. Of course, you can always still send us an email at mail@geekade.com, and while you're at it, check out all our social media channels, which you should totally follow, like, and subscribe to if you haven't already. WaveBack and other Geekade podcasts are made possible thanks to the Geekade Patreon page. There, patrons can get access to a monthly podcast topic and recording schedule, get early access to most of Geekade's shows, including this one, and more. If you've enjoyed our podcasts over the years, follow the link in the description to give it a look. We really appreciate it. Finally, as always, be sure to check out all the other great content we have on our site over at geekade.com. Join us next time for my pick and the first pick of the year. And I've decided that we're going to kick things off this year with a big, bombastic, fantastic game that I cannot believe I haven't covered already. Mr. Matt, we're going to be listening to the soundtrack of DuckTales Remastered.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, we haven't done the original DuckTales, but
Nope.
I'm just in the mood for the remastered one because, look, the original soundtrack is a masterpiece, and the
Yes.
remastered one is also a masterpiece. And it's such good music. So
It's It's
We're
got to be
really
more.
excited for that.
It's got to be more masterpiece. Like it's a masterpiece.
It's a remaster piece.
What? How did I miss that? It's late.
All right, Matt. We'll play us out. What are we listening to go home?
All right. Well, to send you off into the ether, my little pretties, we're going to be listening to a song entitled Bright Days Ahead. And I believe that this is kind of the final piece of music that plays for the game. I don't quite remember if it plays over the credits. Like I said, it's been quite a while, but either way, it's a beautiful, bright, and hopeful song. And my hope for you is that whatever's left in your day, it's good. Until next time.